All right. Good morning, West Conroe students, or if it's afternoon when you're watching this, or evening, whatever time you're watching this. Um, Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Um, so we decided to switch it up a little bit. Instagram Live at 9:30 seemed like a good idea, but the more we thought about it, we realized maybe some of you guys aren't even awake yet, or you're getting ready for the live service at 10. So whatever the reason could be, maybe that you couldn't make it on Instagram Live, we decided to switch it over to YouTube. That way, if we premiered at 9:30 this video, you still have time to go watch it whenever. That you don't miss it. You don't have to wake up extra early if you don't want to. Um, but this session of Pray Like Jesus is faith that endures, and I'm really excited about this one. I think this can be kind of convicting for me. This one, probably for everyone too, just because of the subject matter. Um, but I'd like to start just by telling y'all a story about me. So in sixth grade, I started football for the first time ever. Like I got my football pads, I got my helmet. It was the first day of practice. I was getting all my stuff. They even gave me a mouthpiece, and the coaches were very clear. Like, don't leave trash anywhere. We don't want to see a mess like on the way to the field. We don't want to see a mess in the locker room. We don't want to see a mess anywhere. And so I was making sure I was really careful and stuff. And I was walking out to the field, and my mom described the way I looked in football pads when I was in sixth grade. She said it looked just like a square. Like there was no shape to me. Like I just went shoulder pads and then straight down, just like a square. And so I can just imagine myself like walking out there. I thought I was so cool, but now looking back, I probably look like kind of a loser. But I was getting my mouthpiece out, going to the field, and I remembered, oh no, they said no trash anywhere. So I put my mouthpiece on my helmet or whatever, and I put the trash like on my football belt, like in between it. And so there's a trash can down at the field. So I was just gonna wait for then like to throw it away. So I get down there and I realize, oh no, I don't know where this trash is. And as soon as I run up to go get the trash, I see my football coach running down the field, like coming down to the field with trash in his hand. And I can tell he is mad. Um, and what I'm about to do right now in this next part of the story, I don't recommend any of you should do. Um, just because it's not good, but I did it. Not proud of it. I wish I would have done something different, um, but I did it anyway. So he comes down there and he starts yelling. He's like, "Who left this trash on the field? What did I say about this?" And so he just goes on and on. He's like, "Who did it? Who did it?" And I am like sinking lower and lower in the back of the crowd, and I don't say anything at all. And this is, by the way, the lesson today is not about lying or anything like that. So lying is bad, um, but the second part of the story is what it's about. Um, oh yeah, but the football coach, he's yelling, he's yelling, and this is about 10 minutes. He tries to give someone a chance to step up and say they left their trash out there, and I don't do it. And so he made us do these things called air raids. So we would start at the the end zone on one side, and he'd blow the whistle, and we would start sprinting, and then he'd blow it again, and then we'd hit the ground like straight slide onto the ground, like face first. And then he'd blow the whistle again, and we'd get up and start chopping our feet. And then he'd blow the whistle again, and then we'd take off. And then we'd blow the whistle again, and we'd hit the ground. And as a really, really out of shape sixth grader, that was hard. And we did it for what seemed like an eternity. And I was, by the time I made it like down and back like once, I probably had thrown up like twice already. And I threw up several times during that back and forth. But everyone was like, all my coaches, they were hyping me up because they wouldn't have been if they known it was me who left the trash out there. But they were hyping me. I was like, keep going, keep going. And so I was going, and I kept going, and I didn't stop, and I would be throwing up. And sorry if this story grosses you out. And I'd be throwing up, and I'd keep going. And I didn't stop, and I finished. And even though I lied about that, I'm just gonna try to block that part out. It felt good to finish. It felt good to be able to, even though it was hard, and be able, even though it was mentally, it was harder, I think, than physically, because it could have been so easy for me to just run to the woods and throw up and be like, Coach, I can't anymore. But I didn't, and I kept going, and I kept going. And that's just kind of a silly example of what we're going to be talking about today, a little analogy of faith that endures. But in all reality, if you look at Jesus' ministry and his time um, on this world, he went through so many different trials, so many different temptations, so many different like things that he had to endure. Whether if it was being betrayed by his own disciple, or being tempted by Satan, or the Pharisees always after him, always trying to catch him slipping, or ultimately being tortured and killed. All of his ministry, he was fighting. He was enduring, and because his disciples, because they followed him, because they chose to follow him, they were also put through a lot of things that they had to endure, just by being associated with Jesus. And that's kind of the same for us. When we decide that we want to follow Jesus, immediately, or spiritual warfare starts happening. Things that we have to endure are going to be pretty semi-constant. Um, and it may seem like it could be like you're fighting people or organizations or systems or whatever it is. In all reality, it's spiritual. Just any sort of way that Satan can use to draw us away from Jesus, to hurt our relationship with Jesus, he'll try. And that's not any different in the Bible too. Like if we look in Luke chapter 22, verses 31 through 34, it says this: Simon, Simon, look out. Satan has asked to sift you like wheat, but I have prayed for you, that your faith may not fail. And you, when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. Lord, he told him, I am ready to go with you both to prison and to death. I tell you, Peter, he said, the rooster will not crow today until you deny me 3 times that you know me. So basically what just happened there is Jesus is talking to Peter, and he warns him, he says, look out, Satan has asked to sift you like wheat. And so basically what that is, sifting is, I'll just read this straight from the books because it's easier to understand. It says, sifting is the process by which wheat kernels, the good part of the useful food, is separated from the chaff or waste, and the procedure is violent. Wheat plants have been harvested and are placed on the ground and beaten with sticks, which breaks the seeds away from the useless part, and then placed in a basket and poured out in front of a fan into another basket. The kernels fall and the chaff is blown away. Satan has asked God to sift the disciples, and he wanted the opportunity to beat them and drag them through all sorts of difficulties and to see who would be blown away in the process. So I would like to think, if it were me in this story, I know it's not true, but I would like to think if Jesus was talking to me in this story and he was saying, look out, Satan has asked to sift you, but I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. Lord, he told him, I'm ready to go to both prison and to death. So Peter basically just says, no, like I know you just gave me a warning, but it's like I'm not going to be worried about it. I'd like to think if it was me in the story, I would take what Jesus says seriously, because I feel like if Jesus is saying, look out, Satan has asked to sift you like wheat, I would be taking that seriously. Like, oh no, I need to be on guard. But for Peter here, pride is the first thing that like wells up in him, and he says, Lord, I'm ready to go with you both to prison and to death. So he says, there's no way that's ever going to happen, that Satan's going to be able to sift me from you, because I love you and because I'm going to go to prison with you. I'm going to die for you. I know I'd like to be opposite of that in the story, but knowing myself and knowing my history, and even now, like, I don't think it would be. I think the first thing I would probably do is, there's no way I'm going to leave you because I've done this, 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 and this. But in reality, if we know what happens later in the story, sure enough, Peter denies Jesus 3 times, and he's broken about it. Even though Jesus warned him, he knew it was going to happen. He told him, and Peter was devastated by it. He didn't think there was any way that he could be the one that was sifted, but sure enough, he was. So think about our own lives. What are things that maybe you become vulnerable to? So it could be a number of things. It could be like at the beginning of my story, you could lie a lot, or stealing, or lust, or whatever it is. There's different things for each one of us that we can fall prey to, that we can be vulnerable to, that Satan will try to use against us to sift us away. And so right there, Jesus tells Peter what's going to happen, and Peter immediately just wells up with pride. And so when I'm thinking about this, I start trying to look for my own life. What are like warning signals I can have that I know that something is about to start like going to tempt me? And so I had a mentor one time say like this. It says, "What are your triggers? Like, whenever you mess up, whenever you fall into temptation, what are the circumstances around you? What are the things that are happening beforehand? And you need to start recognizing those, recognizing the things that are going to set you off, recognizing the things that are going to put you in a vulnerable situation, and getting away, and addressing those and praying about those things. Because when you come prepared, whenever you are on guard, um, it's so much easier to fight that temptation off when you have those warnings, like Jesus gave Peter here. When you take those warnings seriously, it can be so much easier to fight those off. Another thing that I really thought was cool about this was in verse 32. Jesus tells Peter this. He says, "But I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail. And you, when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers." So something that I thought was really cool is that Jesus tells Peter that he's prayed for him. Like, how cool is it to think that Jesus prays for us on our behalf? I think that's crazy, and it's so comforting to know that we have a God who prays for us, who cares about us, who warns us of those things because he doesn't want us to fall away. But if you look further into the verse, Jesus says, "I prayed for you that you may not fail." And when you have turned back, so Jesus didn't want Peter to fail. He didn't want him to do that, but he knew he was going to. And so he says, when you turn back, strengthen your brothers. And so Jesus knows that Peter's going to fail, but what does he want him to do when he fails? He wants him to turn back immediately. When I sin, whenever I struggle with something, and I think that's kind of maybe a struggle for a lot of us, when we sin, I think our first feeling after the conviction is not to turn back to God. It's to hide because we think he's mad at us, or we're scared of what is going to happen, or whatever it is, whatever the reason. I feel like most of our first reactions to sinning after the conviction is not to turn back to Jesus, but maybe to run further just because of our guilt and our shame. But this is what Jesus is praying for. He prayed that he would turn back and that he would strengthen his brother. So he prayed that he would repent. And that's what repent means. It means to turn away from. So Jesus is praying for Peter to turn away from that and to come back to him, and so he can use him to strengthen his brothers, strengthen his other disciples, other Christians, other Jesus followers. And it's so cool that even despite that Peter could deny Jesus 3 times, Jesus still wants to use him to strengthen other people. So if you're going through something, if you have a really rough past, or if you're struggling with something and you feel like you can't be used, there's no way Jesus can use you. He wants to. He prayed that he could still use Peter after Peter messed up. Jesus wants nothing more than for you to come back to him, to be in right relationship, so he can use you to strengthen other Christians. He can use your story to uplift and to motivate brothers and sisters in Christ. So, just a short little summary of what we just talked about. Just some questions for you guys to end with. What areas in your life are you most vulnerable, and how can you recognize the things, those triggers around you, to better withstand temptation, better endure trials? And what practices can you put into place to grow in these areas of weakness? How can prayer play an important part? So a challenge for you guys is I've been asking you these questions at the end of each session, and so I would say try to text someone, call someone, so you can talk about this. Hopefully, it would be guys calling guys and girls calling girls, and talking about this and confessing, like, I need your help. I need an accountability partner in this area, because I know that these are my weaknesses, and I need someone in my life who can help me, who can help me recognize those triggers to help me better stay away from temptation and better endure. So that's just kind of my challenge for you guys to end this. If you need anything at all, if you're struggling with something, if you need help, like if you have questions about how can I beat this, because I just don't see a way that I can win this, or I don't see a way that I can get out of this. Call me, text me, call Jonathan, text Jonathan, whatever it is. Get in contact with a leader that you trust, because we care about you, we love you, and we want nothing but the best for you. Hope to see you guys online at the regular church service. Can't wait to see you all in person. We miss you. We'll see you later. Bye.